This program on investing under regulation crowdfunding is not investment advice.
Rising with the crowd, power unbound, change makers lead where hope is found. Superpowers for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Superpowers for Good show from the Super Crowd. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and I really want to just pause and thank you all for joining us. Our audience is growing so quickly, so widely. I know that many of you are watching for the first time, and I want to welcome you to the show. We're thrilled to have you and excited to have you join our growing audience and community. We're thrilled to have you. Today, I have an extraordinary guest, really a rock star in the world of social impact, someone who has been there and done that. John Hewko is the CEO of Rotary International. He's a big deal, and we're thrilled to have him. So you don't want to miss this episode. John, welcome. It's good to have you back.
Devin, great to be back with you.
Well, you know, it is an honor. It is an honor, and I'm grateful that you would make time for us. Rotary International, 1.5 million people around the world. What is it, 45,000 clubs? Give us the update.
Yeah, we currently have about 1.4 million members between our Rotarians and our Rotaractors, 46,000 clubs. And we're really in almost every corner of the world, more than 200 countries and geographic locations. And so I often like to say there's not a politician in the world that doesn't have a Rotarian as a constituent. So what that does is it makes us a truly unmatched global platform to do good in the world.
Yeah, it is wonderful, and I saw that manifested at Rotary's UN Day a few years back. I had the opportunity to be on the program, and you graciously introduced me. It was an honor to be there with you, but. Yeah, Rotary plays big on the global stage, and it's exciting. You know, last year, the Surgeon General noted that there is literally a health crisis in this country. And I don't think it's unique to the United States, but the Surgeon General highlighted this health crisis of loneliness and isolation and lack of connection. How do you see Rotary addressing that? Is that something that Rotary is involved with in some way, directly or indirectly?
Well, first of all, there's no question. I think I agree with the Surgeon General that loneliness, isolation is a huge issue in this country and throughout the world. I think a lot of it was exacerbated with the COVID pandemic, and I think this is where organizations such as Rotary can really continue to contribute to this issue. Our clubs are all about bringing people together, about building connections. So you join a Rotary club to perhaps do two or three things. One is to really network professionally. And in fact, if you look at our organization was set up in 1905. The first Rotary Club was established here in Chicago in 1905. And it was really sort of LinkedIn before anybody had ever heard of LinkedIn. And so in those early days, you joined the club to network professionally, to help the members would help each other with business. And then a number of years later, this idea of community service, giving back to the community was added. So in some ways, we're sort of the intersection between commerce and cause. And so you join a club to network professionally. You join a club to make a difference in your community, whether it be locally, regionally, or internationally. And it provides an outstanding vehicle to stay connected, not be isolated, and to make a difference through that connection. So yes, I think we do have a crisis. Surgeon General is absolutely right, and it's really organizations such as Rotary. We provide an outstanding vehicle and mechanism for people to break out of that isolation, to get together with others, and to really make a difference in their personal lives, but also in the lives of others.
Yeah, it is just a wonderful thing. As someone who's been a Rotarian for a long time now, it is it is great to feel that connection to the community, and it's a unique opportunity. There's nothing quite like it. It's very cool. Now, as you think about Rotary, I think, there are, of course, so many mistaken ideas about what it is, but one of the ideas that I think provides a kind of a barrier to joining is this idea that I don't necessarily want to join an organization where I'm asked to support somebody else's causes, that I have no opportunity to bring myself and my energy and my agenda to the table. And yet, one of the things I've seen is that Rotary sometimes gets behind the club members' projects. The Rotarians kind of drive the ship in some ways. How does that work, and when does that happen? And how does Rotary support individuals and clubs and member initiatives?
Well, as I mentioned, we have 46,000 clubs around the world. And each club, in a way, is autonomous. Some of the clubs are very interested in the social aspect of meeting together and having a good time. Others are very focused on doing community projects that the members of the club are interested in. And other clubs are very regionally or internationally focused. I think one of the beauties of Rotary is that if you are interested in doing international work and making a difference internationally, whether it be in the area of health, education, disease prevention and treatment, literacy. Rotary is an unmatched platform to partner with other Rotary clubs around the world to do projects on an international scale. So Rotary is exactly the opposite in terms of top down. Each club has significant autonomy to do and carry out those things that the club members are passionate about. So when you join a Rotary club and you're interested in a particular issue and your fellow club members are interested in that issue, it's a complete green light to pursue that passion. And so our clubs raise funds locally. They hold significant fundraisers, and they spend those funds as they wish on projects that are of interest to clubs. But at the same time, our Rotary Foundation, which raises over $400 million a year, makes significant grants back to Rotary clubs to do projects of a larger scale in a number of areas. And so it's really an organization where you can fully utilize your passion. We've also got fantastic networks around issues. We call them fellowships, and there's over 100 of them. There's a beer drinking fellowship, a sailing fellowship, a caravanning fellowship, a tennis fellowship, and they get together globally and hold global events and network with each other. So if that's not just service, it's also about participating in fun activities that you're passionate about and doing it in a global context, if that is what you're interested in doing.
It is wonderful. I've seen it firsthand, and it is exactly that. Just amazing how some of Rotary's biggest initiatives, like polio eradication, can trace its roots back to an initiative, right? I think it was in a Filipino club or an Australian club visiting the Philippines in the late 70s. It was the first initiative, right? But that came from, presumably one person saying, and it would have been a man back in the day,
right?
A man saying, "Hey, we ought to do that."
Right. And the polio example is a great one. It was really back in 79. We were celebrating our 75th anniversary, and Rotary was saying, what can we do to sort of commemorate that? And there have been some very active Rotarians in the Philippines that were vaccinating children against polio. And if you recall, Devin, back then, smallpox had just been eradicated. And so Rotary really had the audacity, and I think that's the right word, the audacity as a nonprofit, not a Ministry of Health or a multilateral institution, to say, we're going to eradicate a disease from the face of the earth. And again, smallpox had just been eradicated. And so in 1985, we took on this goal globally to eradicate polio. And then 3 years later, in 1988, we were joined by CDC, UNICEF, and the World Health Organization, WHO, to create the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And more recently, the Gates Foundation and Gavi have joined us as partners in the GP&I. And it's an incredible story, Devin, because it just shows, as you said, what an individual, what a group of just ordinary citizens can do, and the impact that they can have on something as important as eradicating polio. So we had 350,000 cases when we started back in '85 in 125 countries, and today, as I speak, we're just down to 88 cases in 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so we truly are on the verge of eradicating this disease. And, Rotarians have contributed over $2.7 billion to that effort. That's a lot of pancake days and walkathons to raise money for polio. And so, again, a great example of the power of the individual, and also a great example of the power of individuals, like-minded individuals, getting together to rally around a cause. And again, we're on the verge of making history with this eradication of polio.
Yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful. One of the challenges that I think people face when they think about joining a Rotary Club is, they're hung up on joining, right? Being a member of something and taking on a brand like Rotarian is troubling in some way. And some have, mistaken impressions of what a Rotary Club is based on their father or maybe even a grandfather's involvement from long ago. And
right.
How is Rotary adjusting and adapting its membership models for this new world where people are a little more wary of joining?
Well, yeah, and I think like every organization, we need to adapt to the realities of the marketplace. As you mentioned earlier, originally only men could be Rotarians. Well, that's now changed, and that's no longer the case. We have, as I said, 46,000 clubs around the world, and each club has its own personality. As I said, some are, really focused on the social aspects, some on the service projects, others are focused on all of the above. So I think that if one is looking to join a Rotary Club, you can find a club in your area that has the personality and the focus and the types of members that you're interested in joining with and doing things together with. But as every organization, we need to adapt with the times. And historically, we sort of offered a standard club model that was sort of similar all around the world. Each club would meet once a week. The formatting of the meetings was relatively similar. And so as you went from country to country and Rotary meeting to Rotary meeting, there was really a fair amount of standardization. And what we've realized is that the traditional club model is working well in certain parts of the world. It's working well in certain regions, but in others, it's not. And so we've embarked on a really aggressive campaign to offer a diverse line of products, a diverse line of club experiences. So now we have Rotary clubs, for example, that meet online. We have Rotary clubs that are made up of members that rally around a cause. It could be environment. It could be literacy. We have clubs that meet only once or twice a month. We have clubs that are now forming only to do service projects and not have weekly meetings. And so we've had to diversify, we've had to be flexible, and we're finding that it's working. We're finding that people are interested in looking at different forms of clubs. Young people, for example, want to give back. They want to make a difference, but very often they're not interested in the structure and the obligation of attending a weekly meeting. And so we're trying to offer to them a product that is more amenable to their lifestyle and what they're trying to achieve. And so flexibility is really a big part of our strategic plan moving forward, and we're seeing that it's working.
It is exciting to see. I belong to a club. I like to think of it as the best club in the world, but it's a pretty traditional club that does it the old-fashioned way in so many ways, and maybe I've got enough gray hair that I appreciate that, but it is exciting to think about the clubs that get together only to do service projects and that are flexible. And you eliminate the cost of a lunch that keeps it cheap. You eliminate the boredom of being in yet another boring community lecture for people who would perceive it that way. I love those talks, but those. So yeah, I love the flexibility. Very exciting. Listen, John, one quick question. I think one of the challenges that Rotary faces is the perception that grew out of its days of being a men-only club, that it's a club for, really it's still just a club for men, white men especially. What's the message you share? How would you tell people that's not the new Rotary?
Yeah, I mean, the new Rotary is not your grandfather's club, not by a long shot. Just on our, looking at it from a global perspective, 75% of our members are now outside the United States. Our biggest growth is occurring in Asia, Africa, parts of Eastern Europe, Ukraine, for example. Our membership has increased by 50% since the war started, because the Ukrainian people see the phenomenal work that our Rotarians are doing that in the face of this horrific war that they're going through. And so we are an extraordinarily diverse organization, and women now make up over 25% of our membership, and that number is growing. And we are putting a big focus on making sure that our clubs are much more welcoming, that we're able to attract members from a broad array of people within the community, perspectives, et cetera, et cetera. And so, sure, there's still some clubs that maybe, perhaps met the mold of your grandfather's club, but that is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. We're an incredibly diverse organization, incredibly broad organization. That's what makes the job interesting for me. It's you go to a large Rotary event, international event, for example. It's like being at the United Nations. It's fascinating, and I speak a number of languages, and it's a phenomenal organization to really plug into and understand the world in a better way. And I personally certainly in this job, get to use a lot of my languages, which is a great deal of fun.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Listen, we got to take a quick break, John. We're here with John Hewko. He's the CEO of Rotary International. I think we could just summarize him this way. He's a big stinking deal, and we're lucky to have him on the show today. Stick around. When we come back, we're going to get personal with John. We're going to talk a little bit about his superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
Download a free copy of How to Make Money with Impact Crowdfunding, the book Sarah Hanks describes as
a fantastic overview, not just of crowdfunding investing, but of investing in general.
Andrew Savickas raved,
"This book offers unparalleled insights for anyone looking to make a difference."
Scan the QR code to get your copy.
Ready to take your small business to the next level? Honeycomb Credit empowers diverse entrepreneurs by connecting you with community-driven funding. Build customer relationships, amplify your brand, and grow with those who believe in you. Honeycomb Credit, where your community invests in you.
Scan the QR code to start today.
Join the Impact Crowdfunding movement. Get Superpowers for Good, your free daily newsletter with exclusive video replays, a podcast, and the latest investment opportunities open to everyone. Join the super crowd. Scan now so you can learn to make money while you make a difference.
Welcome back, everyone. We're just thrilled to have you. I've got John Hewko, CEO of Rotary International, a global nonprofit with clubs in over 200 countries. He's a big deal. We're thrilled to have him. You stick around. We're going to be talking to John now about his superpower. John, you're a big deal. What is your superpower?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I'm a big deal, but I appreciate the kind words. But I think I would say two things that I tend to be fairly good at. One is to grab a sort of a strategic vision and really drive that vision and rally people around that. And I think there are two clear examples, at least as I see it. The first is, I've 7, 8 years ago, I realized that Rotary was kind of evolving differently in different parts of the world. And so this whole concept of regional flexibility, that we need to offer club models and products in different parts of the region of the world, different regions of the world, that really make sense for the kind of audience that we're trying to reach, kind of member we're trying to attract in those countries. And we talked earlier about the traditional model, one size fits all. And I realized very quickly that was not, that the world was changing, and that wasn't going to be working for us. And so it really promoted this idea within the organization and with the Rotarian volunteer leaderships, with our members and with our board, that this concept of regional flexibility and giving Rotarians and clubs the freedom to really offer and fashion a product that they were offering in the marketplace that was different and perhaps more appealing than our traditional model. If the traditional model is working, no problem, then they change. But if not, we need to adapt. And we do adapt also regionally, because Rotary was evolving differently in different parts of the world. And the second example is, I'm a very, very passionate and avid cyclist, and we talked earlier about the polio eradication effort. And there's a bike ride in Tucson every year, weekend before Thanksgiving, called El Tour de Tucson. It's a 102-mile bike ride, and so local Rotarians in Tucson reached out to me. You're an avid cyclist. Can you give us a hand? We want to use the El Tour we've been using El Tour as a fundraising vehicle for polio. And they're raising maybe $10,000, $15,000 a year. Well, I jumped on that idea, and I kind of mobilized our Rotary global network, began riding with my fellow Rotarians in that ride. And we have now raised, over the last 12 years through that ride, over $70 million for polio eradication. And so when you talk about my superpower, I think it's grasping a vision, a strategic direction, a strategic idea, or an important idea, and then rallying people around that idea, and then driving it to a successful outcome and to a successful conclusion. And we've been able to implement this concept of flexibility, develop new product lines. It's now being enthusiastically embraced by Rotarians around the world. And second, we've been able to raise a boatload of money through biking for polio eradication.
Well, that is an extraordinary superpower, and I appreciate you sharing that. Can you give us a quick tip to help everyone who's listening to learn how to better grasp a vision and help other people grasp onto it with them?
Well, I mean, you have to have a clear mind and clear analytics of what is the challenge? Why are we not achieving what we're not achieving? What are the barriers? And some of it's really common sense. You've been banging your head against the wall, trying the same thing over and over again. If it's not working, you need to adapt, and you need to think about how can we do it better, and how can we provide something that our customer base is going to find more attractive. And then you need to rally people around it, not by telling them this is what you have to do, but by putting together thoughtful, meaningful arguments as to why this is something that you need to do. And very often, on these big strategic issues, I find it's helpful to kind of take the idea and pilot it, especially in an organization that has a lot of tradition, where you're trying to herd, in our case, 1.4 million cats, to sort of pilot some of these ideas. Let's try to see if this idea works in this area or that area. And nothing breeds success like success. And the beauty of an organization like Rotary is that Rotarians are incredibly interconnected, and information flies at the speed of light. And so if you're able to develop something at a more piloted local, regional level, and it proves to be successful, that idea will propagate very, very, very quickly. So it's having strategic vision and having a smart approach toward how are you going to roll this out to your organization in a way that brings people with you rather than against you.
Fantastic. As we wrap up here quickly, how can people learn more about Rotary? How can they find a Rotary club in their own community? How can people connect with you?
Well, Rotary.org. Rotary.org is our website. On the website, we have something called Club Finder. Type in your zip code, the town that you're in, and the various Rotary clubs will pop up, as well as when those clubs meet and where they meet with some, as well as contact information. So again, if you're someone who wants to network with great people in your community, somebody who wants to give back to your community, and someone who's particularly interested in not just giving back locally, but regionally and globally, internationally, and plug into a fantastic global network and to truly make a difference and perhaps blend your professional interests with your philanthropic interests, Rotary is an ideal place to do it. And in most cities, we have more than one Rotary club. And as I said, each club has its own personality. And I'd be surprised if someone who's interested in our organization is not able to locate a club that meets their needs and meets their interests.
Fantastic. John, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate your message and want to encourage everyone to follow up at rotary.org. I hope folks will also maybe connect with you on LinkedIn or something so they can keep track of you personally and cheer you on when you're riding for polio.
Devin, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All righty. Now let's do some good.